मनों में, ज्ञानियों की शुद्ध मनों में, साधकों के चिंतनों में, मेरी आस मेरे श्वास तुझ में ही समाए, साचा रूप साचा रंग मन में दिखाए, प्रकाशित हृदय में ईश्वर।
Oh, Griva.
Hello.
Amelia, hello.
Can everybody hear me?
Lovely.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
All right. I would love to announce this special Zoominar with Dr. Janki Santok. I have met her through the internet, and as I am studying Vedanta since a very long time, I have to say that she was the one to zoom in into Vedanta for personal use, for day-to-day use. She is very practical, and I really love her way of talking. So I would love to introduce her to you today. And I want to thank you all for connecting to this Zoominar with us today. Thank you very much.
Should I show the video or would you introduce her?
Yeah, we will show a nice video about the Vedanta Wisdom Trust mission. And so you will see what they plan to make and build over there in India and Mumbai and worldwide. They have a big mission. So by this video, you will acknowledge what they are planning to do. Thank you very much.
Life today poses challenges at various levels. Modern day living is threatened by anxiety, depression, failure at work, climate change, and war. But is a life of peace and harmony with fast-paced progress possible or even conceivable? The answer, a resounding yes, lies in the ancient Indian philosophy of Vedanta. This pristine knowledge of life and living, as found in texts like the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, has answers to all human problems and is a pathway to the ultimate goal of human existence, God or self-realization. The Vedanta Wisdom Trust mission is to educate humanity on this knowledge. Towards this end, it holds weekly online classes attended by learners from all over the world. The Trust's e-learning platform offers a number of self-paced certificate courses. Offline events include outstation retreats, seminars, public lectures, and workshops. Top professionals can learn and apply Vedantic knowledge in their fields through the Trust's corporate workshop services. The Trust's upcoming project, the Vedanta Wisdom University, will be the world's first university with a curriculum based on Vedanta. Along with education that provides a means of livelihood, it aims to empower its students to become tomorrow's leaders who can think creatively and advance humankind as a whole. Spearheading the Trust and its services is Dr. Jankiji Santok, a well-known proponent of Vedanta for over 3 decades now. A sought-after teacher of the subject and an author who writes for The Speaking Tree, The Economic Times, and more. Her first book, How Do You Know What You Know, examines thinking and its effects on life. Her new book, The Happiness Guarantee, The Philosophy of Happiness, delves into the foundational principles, exposing why our pursuit often leads astray. It uncovers the role of desire and helps master the mind for lasting joy. The Vedanta Wisdom Journal is a platform dedicated to spreading the timeless teachings of Vedanta and exploring their relevance in contemporary times.
The journal publishes articles biannually. You can subscribe to receive access to these articles and also contribute your own work to be considered for publication.
Jankiji's social media presence continues to grow with the YouTube channel Team Janki Santok comprising a subscriber base of thousands across continents. To learn more, please visit
Hariom, maybe we could invite Dr. Janki Santok to have her talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie. So today we are going to be talking about well-being, mental health, and what Vedanta has to talk about that. So let us take it from the primary premise. What is well-being? And we can argue that well-being is nothing but the absence of dirt or impurity. Well-being is just the absence of dirt or impurity. Now, at the physical level, this is easy to understand. If there are toxins in the body, or there's bacteria, or there's virus, then we get what we call disease. The same thing happens at every level of the personality. At every level, whenever there is impurity, there is a problem. So let us see the various levels of the personality and understand how this impurity causes a problem. But before we go there, let us understand what is impurity. When do you say something is impure? Impurity is defined as the presence of something else. For instance, if you have a sample of gold and there is a little copper in that gold, then that gold is impure because there is something else. This works the other way around also. If it's a sample of copper and there is some gold in it, again that copper becomes impure. So impurity is nothing but the presence of something else. You're with me so far? All okay? So now let us see how this functions at different levels of the personality. What is the personality? The personality is made up of you and I and every single human being is made up of, firstly, a physical body. The one you see, the physical body. Then we have our emotions called mind. In Vedanta, we call it mind. It's a translation from the Sanskrit word manas. The English word mind doesn't quite hold the whole meaning, but we are going to use that word. Mind refers to our emotions, love, anger, greed, hate, jealousy, all of that. It refers to our whims and fancies. It refers to our moods. I feel, I don't feel, I'm feeling good, I'm not feeling good. I feel like doing something, I don't feel like doing something. It is the entire irrational side of our personality. So we have a body, this one. Then we have a mind, which is our emotions, our whims and fancies, our likes and dislikes, and this whole lot of things. Then all of us have an intellect called buddhi in Sanskrit. Intellect is our power of discrimination. reason, judgment. Right? So you got three so far. First one is the body, second one is the mind, third one is the intellect. And beyond it, there is the unknown. Some divinity, some life-giving power, some X, we don't know what it is. Right? So this is what the human composition is. So let's start and understand how impurities take away our well-being. At the level of the physical body, we have two things, our organs of action and organs of perception. Our organs of perception are those that take in stimuli from the world. It is what the layman calls enjoying. I enjoy watching a movie, I enjoy listening to good music, I enjoy tasting a good ice cream. All of these are what we call our perceptions, philosophically called perceptions. In ordinary language, are enjoyments. We take in stimuli. And the second aspect of our body is our organs of action, where we act back into the world. We perform actions, we do something. Right? So the body has these two things. Now let's understand their impurity. When it comes to perceptions or enjoyments, why do we lack a sense of well-being? You say, I don't lack a sense of well-being when it comes to my enjoyments. I'm fine if I can enjoy. That's not really so. We find that our enjoyments pale on us. We find that when you first bought the car and your feelings about the car now, when you first bought the house and entered it and your feelings about that house now, we find that there is a definite drop in enjoyment. Even in relationships, with spouses, with everything. We find that when it comes to enjoyment, we start with this big bang, and then eventually it all just peters away. If this happens, this indicates the absence of well-being at the level of the senses, at the level of enjoyment. So what are we supposed to do? What is the problem here? The problem occurs, why this happens in the first place, is because we contact objects indiscriminately. When we contact it indiscriminately, that means there is no filtration before I contact it. Then what happens is the enjoyment of that thing keeps dropping. And dropping and dropping and dropping till the enjoyment comes to zero. If you don't enjoy something, well, that's fine. What's the problem? The problem is that though we don't enjoy it, we are forced to maintain it. You are still paying the EMIs, but it's not giving you any pleasure. You're still having to dust and clean and swab and sweep, but it's not giving you any. So what happens is we tend to get more and more things in the hope of regaining that pleasure. Let's say somebody has a glass of alcohol and gives him a certain pleasure. And slowly, as time passes, he keeps taking more and more. Why? Because the first glass that gave him pleasure, the pleasure is gone. So to regain the pleasure, he takes one more glass. And now he feels fine again. And after some time, the pleasure of 2 glasses is gone. And then he takes a third one and fourth one and all, just trying to regain that pleasure. Eventually, he could be consuming half a bottle and not gaining any pleasure out of it. So then you could turn around to him and say, you're not enjoying this, why don't you dump it? But he can't dump it either. Because while its presence is not giving him any pleasure, its absence starts giving displeasure. Suppose you say, oh, I don't enjoy this house anymore. Right? I've lived here so many years, I don't enjoy it anymore. And I tell you, okay, don't enjoy it, give that house to me. Will you do that? No. Even though it gives no pleasure, you cannot give it up. This is called neutralization. Neutralization is when an object, the presence of the object, doesn't give pleasure, but its absence gives displeasure. Can you give me examples of that? Quick example, okay? Because we have to finish our whole story in 1 hour. So, can anyone give me a quick example of common things where we have lost the pleasure, but we cannot give it up?
Children.
Okay, children.
Well, although it's very delicate because my husband is in front of me, but I would say relationships.
Okay, yes, relationships, correct. What about the most? Who's your husband, Marie? I don't see.
The Christoph.
Oh, I see. Okay, nice to meet you, Christoph. The most common example of this, or the easiest to comprehend, would be your own eyes. Just think about this. Suppose I tell you, you should be very happy. You can look, you can see. You say, oh, well, okay. Only when I see nice things. No, the fact that you can see, the very fact that it's available for sight. So your eyes, they're there. They give you no pleasure that they're there. But when you give them up, no, tremendous displeasure. We are breathing now. Is it giving you any pleasure? I should, suppose I tell you, you should be so happy you can breathe. No, no pleasure. But let somebody stop your breath, and that's acute displeasure. So what we do in life is we lose our well-being with reference to the objects of the world because of indiscriminate contact, and no longer can relate to the objects of the world with any sense of satisfaction and well-being. And what is the impurity? That it is all indiscriminate contact. There is no filtration whatsoever. At the second level of the personality, our actions. Our actions too do not exhibit well-being. When an action exhibits well-being, it means that you're entirely joyful doing it and you have no pressure on you that you have to perform that action. But that never happens. Everybody wants weekends and vacations and breaks from work. You want retirement and whatever, premature retirement, and everybody wants to get away from work because that well-being with reference to work is not experienced. And what is the impurity in our work? The impurity in our work is our self-centeredness when it comes to work. Very few of us work because it is the right thing to do, simply the right thing to do. We work because of 3 reasons. We work because I like that work. I like doing something, so I do it. Or I work because I don't like the job, but I'm going to get something. I'm going to make $1 million if I do it. So I want to get something, therefore I work. Or I work because I have a great sense of self-importance. So nobody dare criticize my work. If anybody criticizes my work, I will give them one whack over the head. Great sense of self-importance. These 3 are impurities in our work. That I do it because I like it. I do it because I'm going to get something out of it. And I do it because, hey, I'm such an important thing. Like anybody doing anything, it's more about them than about the work. We always want praise. We always want validation for what we did. We always want acknowledgement that we did it. Why? The sense of ego is extremely strong. These are the three impurities that as far as work is concerned, and the consequence of it is stress. That's when you start losing the sense of well-being when you go to do any work. So as long as our work has these three impurities, we will never have well-being with reference to it. We will always be dissatisfied. We'll always be a cause of stress. We'll always be looking forward to weekends and vacations and when can I take a break? How long is my break? What's my incentive? All this becomes the focus. And that just feeling of general well-being, which we must all experience at all times, gets denied to us. Okay, so we've done two so far. We did at the level of perceptions, we've done at the level of actions. What is the third one? Third one is well-being at the level of the mind. What is well-being at the level of the mind? Again, we go back. The absence of impurity. What are the impurities of the mind? Negative emotions, demands, expectations, jealousy, anger, greed. All this is the negativity of the mind. It is all the things that should not be there. What should be there in the mind? If the mind has well-being, then it has love, universal love. But when it doesn't have that, then all this anger and greed and jealousy and all sorts of negative emotions start. Worries, anxieties. All of this creates the mental issues because a mind that is not happy is like a body starved of oxygen. How will it survive? It can't. So therefore, it starts exhibiting a lot of, what should I say? It gives out distress signals. A lot of distress signals, just like your body would do if you denied it oxygen. So at the level of the mind, impurities is negative emotion. At the level of the intellect, the impurities are indecision, confusion, absence of clarity. Because the nature of the intellect is clarity, clear thinking, a good comprehension of what you're doing, why you're doing it, where you're going, what's the purpose of it, just clarity. Not being overwhelmed by indecision, confusion, fuzzy thinking, not dealing with facts. The nature of the intellect is it should be so sharp that it should get through whatever is the situation in front of you and have a clear understanding of what's going on. But that's not what happens. Why is that? Why does it never happen? Because though we give nutrition to the body, and we're so aware of it nowadays, people have made their whole life's task giving proper nutrition to the body, taking care of the body. Nobody gives any emphasis on giving nutrition to the intellect. So our intellects have become feeble, incapable of understanding anything. So what happens is all our best intentions don't get converted to good results. Because there are verses in the in the Indian scriptures that talk about having a good quality is a good thing. But knowing when to employ that good quality is a better thing. For instance, it's very good to be forgiving, but not to an advancing army. It's very good to have compassion, but not to a psychopath. So you have to know what quality to exhibit at what time. You must have valor towards an advancing army. What is the use of having valor towards your neighbor? That makes no sense. So, whatever your good qualities are, they have to be expressed at the right time. This is what happened in the very famous book called Bhagavad Gita. I do not know how many of you know about it. It's a story. It's the story of a conversation between the Lord Krishna and his friend Arjuna on the battlefield. So what happens on the battlefield? Arjuna suddenly says, okay, so Arjuna is a warrior, and Krishna is his friend and charioteer, and the Lord. Arjuna, on the battlefield, the battle is about to start. The bugles have rung. The weapons are uplifted. Suddenly he thinks, should I fight this war? Philosophical inquiry is very good, but not on the battlefield. You must know what to do when. And he says, should I kill these people? You are on the battlefield. What else are you going to do now? You have to die or you have to kill. That's it. Otherwise, you don't enter a battlefield. So, to have compassion, to have mercy, to have love, very good, but not here, please. This is not the place for it. So, when the intellect becomes fuzzy, we no longer know what to do. And that's what's happened in today's world. Nobody knows what to do. We have problems galore and no solutions in sight. Because the only thing that can give solutions is the intellect, but the intellect is totally ignored. So at the level of the intellect, the impurities are characteristics which are not of the intellect, such as fuzzy thinking, confusion, indecision. All of these are external to the intellect. The intellect is not supposed to have all of this. And therefore, there is no well-being. Now you may ask the question, where is all this coming from? Where are all these impurities coming from? They are coming from a root. This root is known as ignorance of the self. When we are ignorant of the self, remember I said there were four things: there's a body, a mind, and intellect. And then there's the self, something unknown. We don't know what it is. It is the same in all of us. There's no difference in the self. You can call it the divinity, you can call it the all-pervading, whatever you want to call it, the enlivening principle, whatever you want to call it X. Now, we don't know our original nature. This ignorance of our original nature gives rise to a feeling within us that we are in some way incomplete. And as long as we don't know ourselves, this feeling of incompleteness, as if something about me is simply not good enough, will always persist. That lacuna gives rise in my mind to thoughts saying that if I get this or if I get that, I will begin to feel complete. And we have all tried this stunt, haven't we? All our life, we have tried to get this or tried to get that in the hope that I will now feel complete. When we went to school and we wanted good marks, thinking, oh, I'll get the good marks, be complete. I'll go to college. If I get my college admission, I'll be complete. If I get a job, if I get a partner, if I get a child, If I get a grandchild, I always have the next thing there, thinking if I get it, I will be complete. But the fact of the matter is, you can get nothing from the world to feel complete. It's not possible. There's only one way to reduce that feeling of lacuna within, and that is to gain the knowledge of the self. There is no other way to do it. I'm sorry to disappoint you in case you thought I'm going to give you some very good solution. That's a very good solution, but it's not something that's going to happen immediately. So what can we do towards it? How do you gain the knowledge of the self? Remember, what is the self? The self is something which is the same in all of us. A sinner or a saint, both same self. The white man, black man, brown man, pink man, yellow man, any man, self is the same. Man, woman, and indeterminate, self is the same. Whatever it is, self in all of us is the same. That is why all of us are really one. There is the same enlivening principle in all of us. If we understand this, we feel one with everybody else. If you see another, if you see something else, you see some other, then that is the impurity. And that impurity, that's the root impurity. And that impurity can only go by expanding our oneness with others. Now, how do you do that? This is all very complicated stuff. I don't know what Mari told you and brought you, but this is not so, it's not like a one-day plan. Okay, now let's get mental well-being in a day. No, it ain't happening. This is something first we need to understand. What is the root of the impurity? A sense of otherness. As long as it is there is no well-being coming to me. So what do? I have to somehow increase my identification with others. But how do I do that? I cannot force myself to love somebody I don't love. If my neighbor is irritating me, I cannot make myself like him. So how am I going to increase my identification? We increase our identification by pitching up a higher goal. For instance, today if I work just for myself, then I pitch up a higher goal and say, okay, why don't I work for my family? If today I work for my family, I can pitch up a higher goal and say, okay, I'll work for my community. If today I'm working for my community, then I can pitch it still higher and say, I'll work for my country, or for my continent, or for all humanity, as much as I can take it up. If I do that, or to the extent I do that, the sense of otherness, the sense of selfish self-centeredness drops. And we begin to experience a wellness that we had never experienced before. We don't know what happened. We just know that now we are happy. We just feel absolutely fine. It is an amazing thing. When we can work for a higher cause in this world, suddenly this world looks like a beautiful place. All the what should I say, all the lacuna we found in the world, all the negativity and all the irritants and all of that, suddenly they're no longer irritating us. We begin to find it all pretty funny. So you go home and your spouse starts nagging you and you say, I've come to the right house. Otherwise, you go home and your spouse doesn't nag you, then you should ask, have I entered the right house today? What happened to you? Are you not well? What's happening here? You begin to see the world for what it is and therefore begin to enjoy it. Many of y'all will think, what nonsense? How is that going to happen? I'll prove it to you. Suppose in your house there was a person who was very, 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 very inefficient. And any job you gave that person managed to mess up. And there was absolutely nothing that person did properly. And you were living with that person. Would you be having a great time? I'm guessing not. Now, would you pay money for this person to come and live with you? I'm guessing not, right? Do you realize that you are paying to get such a person to come and spend time with you? Do you realize that? Every time you have bought a ticket to watch a Mr. Bean film, you have paid good, honest, hard money, which you have worked hard for, to watch a man do rubbish. And you enjoyed it thoroughly. That same person in your house, huge tension. On screen, the same person. Everybody enjoyed. He made the billions because we enjoyed his inefficiency so much. So now I ask you, what is it that on the screen, Mr. Bean is an entertaining person, but that same Mr. Bean in my house is a source of agitation and
Detachment.
if you think about it, its only thing is that you are objective to what you are watching on the screen. You lose that objectivity when it's happening in your own house. Right? So life becomes very simple then. If we can have the objectivity whilst we're living life, every bit of it will be so funny that you don't need to go and see a movie to laugh. Life itself is looking extremely funny to you. Everybody is doing funny things. Nobody is doing anything sensible. So therefore, it all becomes highly humorous. You know, even the stand-up comics. Do you realize what stand-up comics do? All they do is they show us our lives. Isn't it? The reason they are so famous is because they tell our life back to us. That's all they do. Means for that small period, they are lending us an objectivity. And we find it funny. Now, why don't we get our own objective? When our selfishness reduces, when our identification increases, we get an objectivity towards the world. We understand what these people are all about. We understand how to deal with them. And none of them cause you agitation. Just like when you have a small child at home, okay, that child is very naughty. The child will come in, its face is full of chocolate. All over there's chocolate. And you tell the child, did you eat any chocolate? And the child said, no, I haven't eaten chocolate, mummy. For days you haven't given me chocolate. Chocolate all over his mouth. So what do you say? You say, you liar, I can see. You say, you feel like laughing when you hear this, don't you? Like that, same. Suppose you meet a small child in the elevator in your building. And the child says, I don't like you. And then what will the adult do? Such a cute child. But if that child's father said, I don't like you, then they'll be up in arms. Why is that? The moment we become objective to something, it becomes enjoyable. So where is mental health coming from? If you really think about it, mental health is nothing but a universal identification and objectivity. Isn't it? It's so simple. The difficult part of it is, how do you achieve this thing? That is the only difficult part. For that, it requires each person's individual effort, consistent effort. Nobody thinks that they would be able to run a business by running their business occasionally. You need the daily grind, right? Nobody thinks that you will become a Wimbledon champion by playing tennis sometimes. It needs the daily grind, right? So similarly, to be able to achieve mental well-being, it needs the daily grind. And in this case, the daily grind is the daily study of Vedanta. Every day, every morning. The time given is between 4 and 6, but if that's too frightening for you, then as early as you can. And studying Vedanta means 80% thinking, 20% listening or reading. All the time we take in information, so much information we want to take in. That information doesn't even stay with us for 5 minutes. If you read 5 books last year, and of that you remember maybe 5%, didn't you waste the rest of your time? So how to make reading effective is by reducing how much one reads and increases how much one thinks about what one has read, in which case the knowledge is digested. And that becomes us. And then knowledge reflects itself in action. That is the knowledge we're looking at. We distinguish between knowledge and wisdom. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Knowledge is the information you have. Wisdom is what you do. So how do you convert this knowledge to what you do? Think, reflect, cogitate, work with it till the penny drops, till you get it. Right? So let's just quickly summarize what we have done. What is well-being, or what is the absence of well-being, is the absence of purity. So impurity at the various levels of the personality we did at the level of the senses, we did at the level of the actions, we did of the mind and of the intellect. All these impurities derive from a root impurity, which is what happened? Nobody was listening. I'm unnecessarily carrying on and on.
The
Ignorant of the
feeling
self.
that we feel incomplete.
Yes.
Being
Why do you feel
ignorant
that?
of the self.
Ignorance of the self.
Ignorance of the self.
Strength of the cells.
Correct. Ignorance of the self. So we have to work towards understanding our own self. What do you get out of that? What do you get out of it as you work towards the knowledge of the self? What are the
Happiness.
two? Okay, that is the end result. But as you work,
Completeness.
you get identification with everybody and objectivity towards it.
Objectivity.
Right? You get these two things. But how do you get them? Daily grind. You don't think you're going to get it. It's a fantastic thing to get. But how do you get it? Daily grind. I'm sorry, I cannot do, I would love to tell you some quick fix things, but there ain't any. What can I do? The daily grind. And what is the daily grind in?
Morning study. Morning study.
Morning study. Yes, very good. And study means?
80% thinking and then reading and listening.
Yeah. 20% reading, 80% thinking. Because it is the thinking that makes us digest these ideas and grow with them. Otherwise, they just become cocktail conversation. Right? So that's it from me for today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take.
Can I have a question, please?
Sorry?
I mean, can I ask a question,
Yes, please.
please?
Can you put your video
Yeah.
so I can see who's asking?
Yeah. So my question is little. I mean, can that be related to? I mean, I'm talking about the creation only, not about this topic what we spoke. But I'm seeking some answers on the creation.
On
Is that
creation,
okay?
we'll take general questions later on. First, we
Okay.
will take questions pertaining to the topic. And
Sure.
once that is over, we'll go to general questions.
Okay. Perfect.
Anybody has any questions?
Yes, I have a challenge.
Yes.
Someone told me someday that health is a situation where you just never think about the body. How would you explain that?
These are just different ways of putting the same idea. If you recognize any part of your personality, if you just recognize its existence, that's an impurity. Because remember that you are the self. If you become conscious of Mari, that's an impurity. Right? So that works at all levels. So it works right down to health. So basically, at the moment, you're not thinking of your stomach because there's no pain there. So they're not thinking of your teeth because there's no pain there. If you think of your mind, there's a pain there. If you think of your relationships, there's a pain there. If you think of your wealth, there's a pain there. Right? So as long as you think about it, you don't have the well-being with reference to it. So same idea. But it's not just for physical health. It's like as long as you recognize the other, well-being goes away.
Yeah, maybe I have another question then. I think coming to the knowledge of Vedanta and studying it and having it as a daily practice maybe needs some qualifications and prerequisites. So I believe that that is one reason why we have been teaching yoga and techniques for calming the mind and concentration before getting to that study of Vedanta. So is that a very good step-by-step process to get to that?
I don't know what exactly is happening, but the qualification for the study of Vedanta is the desire for self-improvement. If one doesn't have that desire, then nothing's going to work. So the qualification is the desire, but just desire is not enough. The intent to also work towards that desire. It's exactly like if you were making money. It's not enough to want to make money. Are you willing to put in the effort? Okay, you must have the desire, you must be willing to put the effort, and you must have an understanding of what is it that connects me to that money. I must have a sort of some understanding of what gives me the money, right? The same thing over here. I must want self-development, then I must be willing to put in that work, and I have some understanding of what will give me the self-development. So what will give me the self-development, that knowledge is Vedanta.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question, please.
Yes, Joyce.
It's about, you mentioned that the parts of the personality, the physical, the mind, etc. But if there is or absence of well-being in one of those parts, let's say there are someone who has health issues, which are the impurities that are causing the absence of well-being at this level. Do we need to deal with level by level, let's say, to reach the realization of the self, or is it the other way around? Do we work on realizing the self and then all the other layers of well-being or absence of well-being will dissolve?
Depends on what one is capable of conceiving. If one can, in anything, if you can do the subtler thing, the gross things are taken care of. For instance, if you have, I don't know, something wrong with the pranas, like pranas are the physiological functions. So if something's wrong with the pranas, and you keep on attending to your digestion or your circulation or whatever it is, but you don't attend to the mind that is creating it in the first place, then you can keep popping medicines, but it's going to stay. But on the other hand, if you're incapable of understanding the mind's role, you better pop the medicine at least, otherwise it's going to get much worse. So depends on what a person can conceive. You can't tell everybody about this because
Yes.
you can't relate to it.
Yes.
So now what, then at least do what you can relate to, you know.
Yes, it makes sense. And it cannot happen simultaneously for some people. You have to be able to work at that level. All right. Yes, it makes sense. Thank you. I have another question, please. It's just something that I misunderstood. I didn't hear that there are two, the expanding of oneness, our oneness with others has two aspects, identification with others and objectivity towards, I missed that word.
No, there are only two things. They're not subdivisions. There's identification and objectivity. And both are towards everything.
Everything.
Yeah. So your object, you can love somebody, means you identify with that person and you understand that person perfectly. You understand that this guy is a crook. You understand it. So you deal with him as you would a crook, but that does not sort of make you not like him less. You think just like with a child, you deal with the child's shenanigans, but you love the child anyway.
Yes. All right, it's clear. So they're not there. Actually, they join somewhere, the identification with others and the objectivity towards everything. Yes. They have a common ground.
Yeah.
All right.
As you get more and more knowledge of the self, you identify and you're objective. Yes. Otherwise, if you only practice love, then people take you for a merry ride. If you only have objectivity, then you are too dry.
Yes. Distant and
yeah. So therefore, as you gain knowledge of the self, both of these come and that creates charisma in the personality.
Yes. Thank you. It makes sense. Thank you.
Jay Chandran, many people thinking that they have knowledge, including me. That is true. We all think we are knowledgeable, but they not able to do perfection to attain wisdom. Please give tips how to do the work if the task is incomplete. Wellness of us suffers. Yes, that's correct. What the tip is only a morning study trying to understand. When you lead with the intellect and you understand, then the rest of the personality follows suit. When you do tasks, it's just at the level of the body. So the rest of the personality is not going to follow suit. So if you take the higher one, then the lower will get included in it. So what is the tips? The tip is to get up in the morning, study, try to understand the subject, and do your best to understand what are the facts of life. Once the facts of life are clear, it will become clear what you need to do. For instance, if you know that water boils at 100 degrees temperature, 100 degrees centigrade, and you want boiled water, then all you need to do is boil it at 100 degrees centigrade. But if you don't know this, you think that water will boil by my putting it in the fridge, then you'll never get your hot water. So knowing the facts is very important. And the facts about life is what this knowledge is all about, just the facts of life. Okay, Jayachandran?
Thank you, ma'am. Good example for explanation. Thank you.
Mahesh Ursekar, how do you know there is a self? By knowing that there is something in your personality that you don't know. Self is just a word. You can say X, you can say whatever. Surely you also don't think that everything in your personality is known, right? So there's something unknown, some enlivening principle, what keeps you alive, whatever. There's some unknown that's taking place. So that is the divinity, the transcendental, the self, whatever you wish to call it.
So it depends on faith, right?
It doesn't depend on faith. Do you know that there is something unknown or not? And your knowledge that there is something unknown is not faith. You know, right? There's something unknown. And if you know there is something unknown, then that's what we are trying to find out.
What if it's all brain activity?
Then that's what you find out. Is it all only brain activity? Find out. But the fact is there is an unknown. I mean, there is things we don't know. So we are in the attempt. Scientists say that, all of this is nothing but just the physical body. It's just the brain activity. Okay, you can take that stance, follow it through, see where it leads you. And the philosophers say, no, there is something else, and that understanding will give you all these results. Now it's for every individual to choose. What do they want to follow? You'll have to make some hypothesis and then go through with it and see where that takes you. That's the way to find out, right?
Yes, thank you.
I have another question. You said just before that if you work on the higher, it will positively influence the lower levels. Does that sometimes?
You can.
Yeah.
Assume you can.
And does that work the opposite side? If you work with the lower, you will improve the upper levels?
You cannot improve the upper levels by learning the lower levels. But what can happen is, if you very seriously do the lower levels, you make one day ask the question, what is better than?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, if I am spending all my time earning money, right? So then I figure out at some point better and better ways of doing it. And at some point, I figure out that maybe there's something more in life than just this. So it's possible.
Yeah. I was more thinking like, I feel that the mind is more ready to study and the intellect is more ready to study if I practice some breathing exercises before. So there are some exercises which you can do physically to improve the quality of the study after that.
What you're doing is not improving the quality of, yes, in effect, what will happen is that, but all that you're doing really is removing the interruptions. The quality of the mind and intellect cannot improve by breathing. But if you just sort that out a bit and, just basically keep it calm, then what happens is whatever intellect is you do have will come to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Take a simple example, you go jogging and you come back, you cannot sit down and study, right? The breathing has to calm down, then only you'll be able to sit down.
That's why we usually have some chanting of mantras and so on before the study, the real study, because one improves or
it doesn't improve. It doesn't improve. It doesn't have that capacity. The gross cannot affect the subtle, but it just removes the disturbance of the gross.
Yeah. Okay.
So in effect, what you're saying is right, because this is what you've experienced and everybody experienced, that you just settle down a bit before doing something, you'll do it better, right?
Yes.
But the quality of the intellect will only grow through study.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, sure.
Oh. Bharat, you have an announcement?